Hello and good morning.
Hi,
morning,
Aaron.
Aaron.
How are
Morning.
you?
You got until 49.
Listen to that little silent voice in the background. You got till 49.
That's me.
You guys, I'll tell you what, we have more fun listening to your podcast. My wife is a second grade teacher, and it's just a very fun podcast that you guys have put together.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. We love that. We love to hear approval, especially from teachers.
Yes.
I feel like I am always still seeking that approval from teachers. Maybe from second grade.
If you could get a grade from her for Meghan, that would be, I think,
that'd
really
be amazing.
Yeah.
In a way, don't you feel like that when you put a show like this and teachers are using it inside their classrooms, it's almost like you're a digital babysitter, but in a way that where they're going to learn something.
Yes, and in a way where I can't raid their fridges like a babysitter. No sneaking popsicles and ice cream on this one.
We'll figure out the technology to make that happen. I think I've got
yeah.
faith that we can figure out how to let you reach out through a podcast and get something from their fridge.
Well,
you can do it.
For listeners, one of the things that they're going to know how fun it is just by the show's jingle. When the episode begins, I mean, that jingle, where did it come from? Who wrote it? And what's happening with it?
So that jingle was written by our very, very talented musical director, performer, they're an actor on the show sometimes too. I guess we'll call them the musical director, Eric Shackney. And they write all the original jingles for the show. And I'm not sure exactly what the process was when they came up with that initial jingle. But when they shared it with me, I just was like,
Yep.
Oh my gosh, we found it.
Yeah, I remember Meghan and I sent a number of conflicting and not particularly helpful song ideas to Eric, and they were able to sift through all these songs that we sent. We were like, maybe it could sound like this, and they managed to cut through that chaff and come up with just a fantastic song. It brings so much energy to the show and really gets things off on the best foot every time.
Well,
yeah, and it's amazing the amount of times we've listened to it now, and I still look forward to hearing it.
Barry Manilow always said jingles were actually just short songs, and that they become favorites in your life and they become a part of the soundtrack. And I totally see that as being a part of this.
Oh, great. I love that. Yeah. We'll have to relay that to Eric. That's such a huge compliment.
Yeah. And Eric does such a great job with helping us make the show feel like it's a real big show, like a real big quiz show that has all the bells and whistles and all the production that you expect, so that it sounds less like something that I'm recording from my garage and Meghan is recording from her house and the kids are recording from wherever they live. Eric really pulls it all together in a way that is, along with our editing team and our production team, but the music really gives it that extra lift to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk as podcasters and the business of podcasting in the way that in when you have a team like that, that means you've got to relinquish a lot of your control so that you can trust in others' art.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Elliott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel very lucky we assembled a really amazing team. And it feels like what we just said about like relinquishing control. I just trust everybody so inherently because they are all so good at what they do. Our producer Jane is another person who she interviews the kid contestants before we meet them, and she's just so talented at working with kids and sort of like getting our producers, we've had Bernie and Taylor are just amazing and really help to streamline everything, schedule wise, flow wise, so we can just sort of focus on the creative aspect, which is like the writing and the performing of it. And then our amazing editing team, which Elliott, I don't know if you want to talk about Bree and Kate.
Yeah, Bree and Kate, they managed to take a somewhat lumpy recording session that we do, just because when you're working with kids, sometimes they may have trouble figuring out what they want to say for a moment, and also adults often have trouble figuring out what they want to say. The scripts are Meghan oversees the script writing, and the scripts come out great, and then I have a real habit of trying to inject new jokes in the moment that often get in the way of other jokes that have already been written that I've forgotten about. And so Bree and Kate really do a great job of fixing those moments when I've forgotten to set up something.
Yeah, and really finding those gems. Yeah.
But we're so lucky that we have a team of people that they're talented, and everyone feels excited to be working on this project.
Yeah.
Everyone feels like they're really into this project, and so it's easy to relinquish that kind of control when you know that the person you're relinquishing it to cares as much as you do about what you're making, and has the ability to back that up, and has the imagination to back that up. You know, there's come a point for everyone where they've kind of contributed the necessary idea or the necessary inspiration for something that we're working on, and that's really exciting.
And like also our publisher from Penguin, Francesco, is
I was going to bring that up.
So
yes,
so great. Yeah.
Penguin, I have had such a great relationship with Penguin, and in the way that I get to spend some time with their authors and stuff like that, and to see that you guys are associated with them, it was like, oh my God, this is the perfect show.
Yeah, thanks. And they really care a lot. I mean, it's based on one of their best-selling series, and so I was sort of like, well, this has been a best-selling series for a while, so is it, people are just going to kind of take a back seat, like what does this mean, like brand-wise? But they care a lot. They care about the messaging and very involved. So we feel very lucky.
And in a way that they care about it in a way that is helpful when we need it, and when we control, and supportive when we just kind of need to fly. They've been really good about giving us such a strong foundation to work off of. We're very lucky. We're very #blessed.
The name of the podcast is Who Was. One of the things that you guys have mastered with this is that I believe that laughing drops the guard, learning and then puts it right back in there. It gives people the opportunity to fill their minds with something new, and so laughing and learning goes together hand in hand.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, there's a history is amazing. History is just so fascinating to me, and to at least a few other people. And there's but it can be very hard to swallow if it's too serious. And because when it gets too serious, it's easy to forget that the people that you are learning about were real people, that they lived real lives, that they started as kids, that they accomplished things the same way that regular people do, that they had to use the bathroom and eat food and sleep and all the things that people do. And humor really helps to take people off of that guard and to remind them that everything is silly when you get down to it. Pretty much all of life is silly in one way or another. And I think it's easier to relate to things, and like you're saying, easier to learn when you have given someone a reason to laugh about something rather than a reason to take something very seriously right from the beginning.
So is it theater of the mind in the way, because I mean, if I were to go out there and explain to somebody, a listener, what this podcast is about, they wouldn't get it until they actually experience it, because the theater of the mind is that on a podcast you have a quiz for young adults and kids, and really it brings the show together because you're playing inside my head, because I can't see the pictures like a normal game show.
Well, there's something so special about podcasting, and radio is very similar, but I think podcasting for some reason takes even further, where it's such an intimate medium, and it really it injects those words into your skull. And I've this is not the first podcast I've hosted, but I've noticed that with other podcasts I've hosted, that the listeners really build this relationship of friendship and intimacy, where they feel like they know you, and they feel like it's really happening in their minds while they're hearing it. And so it's just an exciting medium to be in, because it seems to connect to people's brains so quickly, and come alive in a way that even seeing something on TV, I feel like doesn't hit so closely, doesn't feel as real or as personal as listening to a podcast does. Well,
I love the way that you put famous people's names together that really we would never think going together. For instance, like Aretha Franklin and Stan Lee. It's like, what? And then you listen to the podcast and you get it.
There's nobody where you can't find similarities. So this show is loosely adapted from a television show that was based on the same series of books called The Who Was show that was on Netflix and still available for people to watch. And I was a writer on that show, and there was an episode we did where it was George Washington Carver and Genghis Khan, and we would have thought there's no way we can compare these two people. Genghis Khan was, of course, a conqueror and built this empire all across Asia and into Europe, and thousands were killed. And he was a brilliant military strategist. And George Washington Carver was this very kind of humble scientist who worked with plants his whole life and was very peaceful. We're like, we're never going to find commonalities between the two of them, and we found so many that it was astonishing to me how many ways that they were both orphans. They both kind of created their own names and their own histories at a certain point in their youth, and they both looked at ways of elevating common people so that their lives were easier than they had been in the past. And it was just astounding to think, well, if we could combine, if these two people have similarities, then we can find similarities between almost everybody. And part of the fun has been coming up with those matches, and also discarding the ones that are not as good. For a while I was really pushing Jane Austen and Mark Twain, and I just want to call them Jane and Twain. And Meghan said, well, what else do they do? And I said, that's it, the name's rhyme. That's the whole thing. So we ended up not doing that one.
Although sometimes all we need is one rhyme that makes you laugh, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Why not?
yeah, that's true.
So is it wordplay when you're putting the scripts together? Because I'm a writer, I love playing with words, and you guys jokingly have called yourselves Lennon and McCartney. I mean, you got to be playing with those words to bring out the stories.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my mind was just going to, we did an episode of Jacques Cousteau and
Jackie Robinson. Yep.
Yeah. So we had fun, Jackie. And then of course, like, in terms of like wordplay, like, we have reoccurring bits on the show where I play the announcer B, and it's always fun to stretch your brain and find out how many ways B can use the word B to announce herself, and how many sort of mean but not too mean comments we can use to introduce Elliott.
Yeah,
a pair of glasses with a person attached.
Yeah. There was one of my favorites was a crossword puzzle looking for a clue.
Yeah,
I think
crossword answer. You were a hint in search of a crossword.
That's what it was, a hint in search of a crossword. Yeah, there's just so much fun to be had with funny ways of saying things or funny turns of phrases, and it's kind of like it feels like the two basics of comedy are people falling down and funny finding new ways to say things that are kind of funny and surprising. And because it's an audio medium, we can't do too many jokes about people falling down. I think we've done some, but there was one of my favorite really nonsense jokes that was not even about history from the show was the ghost of King Tut is coming to the show, and the lights start blinking, and the air conditioning gets really cold all of a sudden. And we go, oh, it seems the air conditioning's on the Fritz. And B says, who's Fritz? And I go, our maintenance man. We've got to get him.
We've got to get him.
I grew up listening to Radio Mystery Theater as a child. Those late nights, I would sit there and listen to that stuff. I see young adults really listening to this on their smartphones late into the night, because it really does allow the imagination to rest and let you guys do the entertaining, and to let these kids that are filled with uncertainty to have a place to escape to.
Yeah,
well, I hope
that's
so.
Very well put. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we can entertain them and help them kind of forget about their regular day for a moment, and then when they walk away, if they remember one thing that was really funny to them, and that really stuck with them about a historical figure, that's all that we're really asking for. Just if they come away with it, even just knowing a little bit about someone they didn't know as much about before, then that's great. I think one of the things that we try to do with it is to not overload the audience with information, because there's only so much you can take, and also because we want to be entertaining first of all, to open up that gate to let a little bit of education in. And so if it's something that kids and young adults can do to like just unwind, and then maybe they don't even realize it, but a fact ends up in their memory, then we've won the day. That's victory. Yeah.
Don't you think that you are conversation starters in the way that instead of tweeting somebody or going onto Instagram with a picture and stuff like that, I just picture young adults in school or even on a telephone call saying, you're not going to believe what I just learned. You're just not going to believe this. Or it's going to make them feel like a know-it-all, and because they did learn it, that gives them that opportunity to say, guess what I just learned.
Right. Yeah. I think it's definitely more shareable, I guess, than a post. Yeah.
Do you find yourself moving this in toward video? Because I could see your cartoon characters, your memes, just having a great time doing something like this.
Oh, well, I would love that. I mean, Elliot was saying that it was a TV show on Netflix. He was a writer on, and our executive producer Rich Corson was also involved with. And our intern Zach was on the show. So we had a great time working on the TV show, and we get most of the contestants on, and they're like, I love the TV show when it's next season coming out. So I don't know, maybe there's a revamp, Elliot. Let's do this.
We'll see. I mean, it's possible. I'm always amazed when I meet kids and they find out that I worked on that show and they're really excited about it. They know all the things, and it's exactly like you're saying, Arrow, that they'll be like, "Do you remember the part about Marco Polo where he did this and then this and this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember. I worked on that show. It was pretty funny, right? Yeah. And then he did this and this happened and this happened." And it's just amazing how much. I'm always amazed at how much they retain from it. And I have 2 kids, and my older son is the exact same way. He'll pick up stuff from this podcast, and then later on he'll relay it back to me, and be like, did you know that this happened? And I was like, yeah, you heard that on the podcast that I host. Like this, I was there. But
I said it.
And it's that and that's maybe the most amazing thing, is when a kid learns something from what you've done, and it hits them so hard that they don't even really remember where they got it from. It just becomes information that they just know so strongly that it's just something they take for granted now, and they relay it back to you, and maybe it changes the way they think about something, or maybe it just interests them, or gives them a little perspective, or even just gives them a reference they can make when they're making their own jokes. It's really exciting to have that happen, to have planted that in a young kid's brain, and see what it grows into.
Yeah, because we become such a content-driven generation, and as we pass it forward to the next generation, it's the same thing, and it's going to get stronger. I need to know. I just don't want to go to Google to fill my need to know. When we have a show like this, then you guys are giving it to us in a way to where we can hold on to it a lot longer.
Yeah, well, we hope so. Yeah, we hope it, that the comedy makes you laugh, and so it sticks with you longer. Like I was thinking, Elliot, when you were talking about the show again, the thing that a lot of kids talk to us about from the show is peanut soup.
There's in that George Washington Carver Gangstown episode, there's a scene that was written by the head writer of the Who show, Brian McCann, about an ad guy is selling a jingle for peanut soup to George Washington Carver, and I think that was literally the first thing written for the entire series was that song about peanut soup. And yeah, kids love that song. If you can make a silly, it's that the strength of jingles again. If you can make a silly, goofy song about something, then it'll stay with a kid forever. I am often entertain my children with the commercial jingles of yesteryear that I remember from my youth, and we sit around the fire and they're enraptured. I see the glow in their eyes as they hear me sing about Big Red Gum, or
sometimes fruit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really the language that goes back to our caveman ancestors, is the jingle and the immediacy of it.
Wow. You guys have got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean,
we'd love to. Thanks.
You be careful about that. I will walk through that door over and over.
Oh, please do.
Megan's kind of like a vampire. Now that you've invited her, she'll just show up.
Oh, look. If Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, he's been on 16 times, and he goes, "Get that Arrow guy. He knows how to ask questions. Get Arrow." You guys have a great day today, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You too.